Hi guys, Martin here and welcome to this new tutorial. For the longest time I've been looking for a technique for quickly adding characters into my Blender scenes. I've gone through software like Daz or Poser or even downloading character assets and rakes for Blender, but no workflow ever really clicked for me. Until one day while I was browsing the Adobe website, I actually realized there's a new tool called Fuse. It said create your own 3D characters and use them in your Photoshop projects. I decided that instead of in Photoshop, I will use these characters in Blender. And quite quickly, I found an easy workflow on adding them, rigging them, animating, and then rendering inside of Blender. I will show you all of that in this tutorial. One note before we begin: while these Fuse models may not be ideal for hero assets where the demands for quality tend to be higher, they are great for filling your scenes with semi-detailed characters, and they are great, for example, for environment renders, architectural visualizations, or even artworks where the human models are not really the focus of the scene. First of all, you'll need to have Adobe ID to be able to download and open Fuse. If you don't have one, just head over to the Adobe website, create it, and then you can get the Creative Cloud app and download it from there. From that point starts your 500-day long trial, which is quite enough to experiment with the software all you like. Alright, here you can already see the interface of Fuse. And if you've ever played the game The Sims, you'll be right at home with this editor. All we have to do to start is select the head you want and then continue down the stack, choosing different body parts from which to build your character. The first one is always the recommended one for the head you've chosen. And even though there's not too many presets, there are enough different body types to assemble any human you wish. There are even a cartoony looking boy and a girl, and one zombie. Yep, zombie. Besides that, you can customize everything, so the possibilities are almost endless, as I will show you right now. You edit the shapes by hitting Customize up here in the menu, and immediately many different sliders appear. It may seem overwhelming at first, but don't worry, all you really have to do is to click on different parts of the body and drag them around. Every time you do that, your chosen part of the body appears in the right active region area where you can work with the slider, or you can manually do it by left clicking and dragging. It's really that easy. Ever since I played The Sims 2, I've actually always dreamed of an accessible tool to be able to do this, and now I have it. I know a lot of people is bashing Adobe, but really I've been very pleased with the tools they offer ever since I started using them. Well, maybe except for Premiere, that's constantly freezing on me. That really pisses me off. But Fuse is great. As you can see, you can go wild with the editing and even expressions. I won't edit this lady too much though. Let's just jump into the next step and let's create some clothing. Here you simply choose from the available shirts, coats, jackets, trousers, hair, or even glasses or gloves. And great thing is that even after you add these accessories, you can always go back and edit the appearance and the proportions of the character. You don't even have to go back to the Customize tab, you just do it here by simply dragging on different body parts. Now let's choose some fitting trousers and go to the Hair tab. There's many different types of hair, both for female and male models, and I will show you how to change their color and different texture properties later. One quick side note: if you added some accessory and you want to delete it, just select it and hit delete. The fourth main tab is called Texture, and here you can adjust everything from the resolution of the textures to the different patterns and colors used. And still, all you do is click on the mesh you'd like to change, and immediately on the right, different options appear. Here, for example, you can see me changing the iris color of the lady's eyes. There's many other options available. You can completely change the tone of the skin, add freckles, textures for beards. You can even make the character pink with black eyes, if you want. And it's also easy by just selecting and playing around with the different sliders. And this is really what's great about this app. It's simple, easy to use, and very fast. Sure, the results may not be good enough for the main characters of your short film, depending on the level of quality you're aiming at, but they're definitely good enough for filling your 3D scenes with CG people. And you can always use these models just for base and work on them later, just as I'm doing in my Heroes of Bronze project. Here I am adding colors in the makeup tab, changing the skin tone. You can also experiment with the age slider, making your characters look older. You can also control stuff like ambient occlusion of the textures, for example. One useful thing you can also do is you can always increase or decrease the resolution of your textures depending on the needs of your scene. The closer the character to the camera, generally the higher the resolution should be. Oh, and the shoes. Never forget the shoes with the ladies. Also, let's make her wear shorts. I want her to be this casual, sporty type. And here you can see me selecting the shorts and going to the texture tab. For each piece of clothing, you can click on different texture maps the model consists of. Here, just browse from the presets down below and choose any texture you want the clothing to be made of. You have a lot to choose from. There are synthetic materials, fabrics of different color, even leather or metal. Yep, this blue shirt will do. In the texture slot, you can even control different textures for hair, mustache or beards if you want to add them in a form of a texture. If you want them 3D, you find everything in the clothing tab. But no, let's not destroy our lady by giving her a beard. Once I'm happy with the model, I just go ahead and up here on the right, I click on the Send to Mixamo button. Before that, you can even save this character to your Creative Cloud library if you know you'll later use it again. Choose or create a library and now you'll be able to load it directly from the cloud. Now just go ahead and send the model to Mixamo, which, same as Fuse, is a super easy tool for adding rigs and animations to your character. Now, I don't know about you, but I was just never really able to learn advanced rigging. Sure, I can create some simple bone structures and let Blender create automatic weights when setting up the armature, but still, I always wanted to have a tool that would help me with it. Well, Mixamo can do that, and with Fuse it's even more awesome. Basically, after you upload your character, you just wait a bit until it's processed. Based on your needs, choose whether to have finger controls or not, and whether to add blend shapes for creating face expressions. We will enable everything, and later I will show you how to use it in Blender. If you told me 10 years ago these things would become so simple, I'd probably stop learning Maya rigging and just wait a decade. After you let Mixamo prepare your character, you can just choose to download it or add some animations to it. Here it's just about choosing your favorite animation. There's so many short clips you can choose from, starting from basic idle poses to crazy action stuff. So cool. If you want to create your own CG short film and know nothing about animation and have nobody to help you, like me, here you can definitely find your animations, and with some planning and creativity, you can put together cool videos just using these clips. In this case though, I'd like to find something more elegant, for example, this dance pose. Being fairly sure it's the right one for me, I go ahead and click download. Here you can choose several formats, but actually I found that for me, Collada works the best, at least when it comes to skinning. I leave everything else as it is and hit download. By the way, you can also choose to animate some preset characters directly from Mixamo, but these tend to be more to the fantasy side, so you'll probably do better if you create your own in Fuse. When using the Collada format, it gives you this zip file with both the model and all the textures. You can of course edit these in Photoshop, paint over them, change color of different regions, anything you want. Now let's go ahead and import the model. Go to File, Import, Collada, and browse to where your model is located. And what happened here? There is no animation. Well, it's this funny thing with the Collada format, you have to help it a little. So you just add a timeline to one of your windows, slide with holding down the right mouse button, and the character pops into our downloaded pose. However, by default, the textures are not plugged in. We only have our materials for different parts of the model. So now add a node editor and let's start with the body material, which is the skin of our character. Since I'll be using the principled BSDF shader for all my meshes, let's go in, hit use nodes and choose it from the list. Now to start plugging in image textures, hit Shift A in the node editor window and type in image texture. This gives you a node where you put one of your downloaded textures into. Just connect it with the color node, hit open and find the texture folder on your hard drive. Here, since we were plugging in the color node, choose the body diffuse image. Now hit Shift D to duplicate the image texture node. Don't forget to change this one to non-color data, since all the channels except the color use black and white information. Load the body gloss map and plug it into the roughness channel. But since the gloss is actually the inverted roughness map, let's hit Shift A and type in invert, which gives you the invert node. Plug it between the image texture and the shader and you're good to go. Alright, Shift D again and this time load the specular information. This one you plug directly into the specular socket. The normal map also needs one special node to be plugged in between the image and the shader, which is the normal map node. In this case, I have it set to tangent space. To plug in the opacity channel, we actually combine the principled BSDF with a different shader. Hit Shift A, type in Mix Shader and add it before the Material Output node. Then add in the Transparent BSDF. Transparent, not translucent. Plug it into the first shader socket of the Mix node. And finally add in a new image texture, load into it the body opacity map and plug it into the factor socket. Don't forget to have it set to non-color data. In this way, we set up all the shaders we'll be using for all of the different character parts. Let's just try a quick render now, and it looks good. I tend to use slight subsurface scattering for the skin, like 0.05 or even less. Of course, we don't want to set up this structure for all our materials, so let's just select the node network by hitting B and dragging, and then hit this copy icon. This way we can just select a different part of the character, for example the shirt, and by hitting the paste icon or Ctrl V, add in the whole network into this new shader. Of course now the shirt uses the same texture maps as the body, so we need to switch all of them for the correct ones. Simply go into each image texture node and replace them. And then go do the same thing for all the other materials in the scene. Ctrl C, Ctrl V into the new shader and plug in the right textures. Once that's done, it's time to hit the render again and behold the beauty. Now let's just quickly add a simple lighting to the character. I tend to start by adding a sun lamp and rotating it so that it lights the character's face. I also change the environment surface color in the world tab, make it more dark so that the lights I'm going to add are more prominent. Then it's time to hit Shift D and create a copy of my sun lamp. This one will be the rim light on my character, so I rotate it on Z-axis to light the lady's back. To introduce some shadows on the ground, add a simple plane and give it a diffuse shader. Then go to the Object tab in the Properties menu and scroll down where you find the Cycle settings. If you now check the Shadow Catcher option, you will get just the shadows when you render, but the material itself will be transparent. Now let's just change the color of the light, make the key light warmer and the rim light slightly bluish and also stronger than the key light. And with that, our simple lighting setup is done. Alright, let's try a test render. Before that, however, do the things one usually does before rendering. So let's add a camera to render from, and with it selected, hit Shift F to get into the first person view. In it, you can position your camera by just flying around. To make the composition a bit flatter, I use a higher number for the focal length, something like 50. Also, I want to change the render's resolution and image dimensions, so I go to the render tab and adjust the numbers here. In the scene tab, just simply activate denoising. It will remove the noise for you. And don't forget to set your color space right to the filmic settings. That always helps with handling contrasts and highlights, though it's probably not so important here since we have just one character with no environment. Oh, and before hitting the render button, be sure to set your device to GPU. It will render our character faster, and it also helps to set the tile's resolution to something like 512. And that's it, our dancing lady is ready to be rendered. As you can see, this image took about a minute to compute, which means apart from looking quite good, for something so automatic and free, these fuse characters are also pretty fast to render and so good for animations. Based on the test render, I decided to make the hair of the character a bit darker by bringing RGB node after the image texture node and lowering the curve. I also decided to create one additional lamp, in this case a spot lamp, and I let it shine at the lady's face. I gave it a strength of 10 and made it warm just to fill her face a bit. If you choose to export the model with blend shapes, you now have all these options of actually creating and even animating different expressions on the character's face. These are hidden in the Object Data tab of your properties, where if you scroll down, you find shape keys. By sliding through the different shape keys, you can, for example, open the mouth, change the position of the eyebrows, make her close her eyes, and many combinations of everything. This is the fun part of the process, so definitely play with the expressions and even add keys to them by right-clicking and hitting Insert Keyframe. You can then very quickly start animating your facial expressions here. In our case though, let's just slightly raise the left corner of her mouth to make her smile in a mysterious way. One of the drawbacks of the Collada format is that the bones of the rig are actually imported incorrectly, all facing up. Nevertheless, you can use them, rotate them and animate them normally, and all deforms correctly. Anyway, one thing we can do is to make them larger just a bit by going to the edit mode, hitting Ctrl A, and with the individual origins pivot center selected, I scale them up a little. With that, let's change the direction where she's looking. Simply select the two bones for the eyes and rotate first on Z-axis, then on X-axis until she's looking into the camera. In the very same way, you can select any bone of the rig and rotate it or even scale it to your liking. This is great for using the animations from Mixamo and adjusting the poses a little. Once you have the character set up in Blender, applying a different animation from Mixamo is a matter of just a few moments. You just choose the one you like, for example this ninja pose. You choose the same format you downloaded originally, in our case Collada, and hit download. One thing I did not mention is that you have some limited options here in Mixamo to change your animations. In majority of the cases you can adjust character arm space. If you have a large bulky character, you can put his arms wider apart so that they don't go through the torso, while skinnier characters generally work better with smaller numbers. Also, overdrive makes your animation faster or slower. You can trim or mirror your animations as well, which is pretty self-explanatory. Back in Blender, all you have to do is find the newly downloaded model, import it and put it on an extra layer by hitting M and then choosing a different socket. Here you just select your imported armature and in Graph Editor hit Ctrl A, selecting all the keys. Then just hit Ctrl C to copy them. Back on your original layer, you select the shaded character's armature. In Graph Editor, go to some other frame than where we have our original pose and hit Ctrl V. I'm going to repeat myself, but yes, it's that easy. And I really hope you see all the possibilities for your own animated projects. One last note before I send you off to experiment with your fuse characters is about adjusting the weights. Sometimes with the Mixamo animations, you hit a pose where the limb starts to deform in a weird way. In that case, the skinning is not ideal and it needs to be changed or blended better. Like in this case where her arm bulges in a weird way out of her shoulder. In your vertex groups, you can find the right shoulder vertex group, click on it and then go to the weight mode. Here the red color indicates the area where the geometry is most influenced by the bone's rotation and the blue area defines where it's not influenced at all. The colors in between show areas where the deformation slowly falls off. You can simply go in, use brushes like Add, Subtract and Blur to blend the different regions together and watch how it influences the problematic area of the model. You can then switch between different vertex groups, like here I'm jumping to the right arm and editing the area influenced by the arm bone. By the trial and error method, carefully painting, adding and subtracting, you can attempt not to screw your whole model up and hopefully arrive at a better looking result. As I've already mentioned, these models are great as background or midground assets for your scenes, or as a starting point for your own character creation process. You can take them, sculpt them, change the topology, change the skinning, or completely change the textures. I myself used one of the fuse characters as a base for my Spartan warrior model. By the way, this whole tutorial is part of the upcoming Spartan course that I will release on my Gumroad next month. It's huge, documenting the creation of this asset from start to finish, so definitely stay tuned. And if you like this tutorial, be sure to subscribe, like or comment. I'll be happy to hear your thoughts. Until next time, Martin out.